week.
Sorry.
That's okay, but I can give a rough, I was going to talk about it hopefully next week, but I can give a rough estimate.
I can wait.
That's fine if we want to wait. Or
All right. You got 3 estimates, right?
yes, I was going to have it
Bring it in
more,
next week.
a little more prepared for you, for the commissioners next week. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions, Will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kathy Armstrong. You remember a couple of weeks ago, the question was asked, what are we paying for propane? How much are we using? When are the deliveries? And so on and so forth. So Kathy Armstrong in our office handles the bills that come in, and she can fill us in on the cost of the propane, when it comes, where it comes from, and so forth. Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, we purchase it from Country Gas, which is part of Eastern Propane, and basically, in order to keep the cost at the lowest they can do, it basically changes every load. So whatever the going rate is what we get charged.
And what
so
roughly is our rate?
The last price we paid was $2 per gallon.
Straight $2 per gallon?
Well,
just $2?
2.00162.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the price, but it changes.
Well, you got another figure, a higher figure?
Higher, they're all over the place. I can tell you the history of what we've been paying Country Gas.
Okay.
You know, it's back at the beginning of the year, it was 2.21652. We've paid, and now at the end of the year, so the most recent I have was that I just paid one. It was at 2.03384 per gallon.
Okay.
Every load is usually about 9,500 gallons when we have a delivery. And coming up in the heating season, we get those loads. That's close to $20,000. We get those loads like every other week.
Every other week we get a load?
During heating season, yeah.
And that, how many gallons is a load?
9,500.
9,500 gallons?
Yep.
And it is in gallons, not pounds?
It's in gallons.
Okay. Mr. Babson, you had some questions. Go ahead.
You know, we pay that rate, and we have to pay it to Easton because they own the tank.
Right.
But what is that price based on?
I
mean, years ago, I can remember my favorite commissioner saying that we were paying $1 more than at the end at Selkirk. Whereupon I went down to Rhines, and he showed me there must have been 10 or 12 people that were in the organization that put the pipeline in, and each one of them had a different price. And so that, yes, it could be in Selkirk, but some of them there was a difference, I can't remember now, but it was fairly substantial. So, yeah, but our contract didn't say it was Easton's price at Selkirk. It said it was $1 over the Selkirk price, which could have been any one of the 12, and I'm betting they were using the highest and adding $1 onto that, not the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we can't go out for bid because we own the tank. Maybe it's time to consider purchasing our own tank and going out on the open market.
It's a lot of money.
Well, $20,000 every 2 weeks is a lot of money too.
I don't know. I can contact Dennis Gagné if you want and have him justify their pricing. I can't do it for them.
Yeah. Okay.
I know they've tried to make it as fair to us as they can.
I'm not saying they're trying. I'm just asking, is that formula or that agreement still in effect, $1 over Selkirk, or somehow has it slipped by so there is a new purchasing arrangement?
They recently changed because we used to have every month. That Selkirk, that goes way back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know. I don't negotiate with them. But I know recently they contacted us and said that they would have to, based on whatever their costs were, so one load might be more or less. They thought in order to be the most fair to us, we had a monthly price. They would tell us at the beginning of the month, this is what it's going to be. But they decided that for their benefit, sometimes it was to our benefit, sometimes to theirs, they decided to be the most fair, they would do it whatever the price was
Per load.
at that delivery time. So that's why it changes all the time.
And but it's still based on that $1?
No, I don't believe that. I can contact Dennis Gagne and see if he can put in writing. I mean, he's explained it, but it gets a little complex, their method of calculating, so I wouldn't want to misspeak. So I would be happy to contact him and see if, like I said, he can justify their pricing.
And when you're doing that, let's check with some other gas companies, see what they're getting per gallon, what they would get per gallon to deliver to us. If you're on the phone to Easton, find out what it would cost to purchase that tank. We might just as well get as much information as we can.
Okay.
Will?
Just to add in on the maintenance side of the aspect, because I'm the one that goes out and checks the tank daily, and I usually call Kathy and tell her that we need to order. I tell her what percentage the tank is in. We go through, this last winter, we go through around 4 to 5% we were going through. When I look at the percentage gate out there, 4 to 5% a day in the middle of the winter time. And when I get a load, she said 95,000 gallons, to me, I talk in percentage because I'm looking at the gauge out there. That gives me about 30% on the tank. So you figure every about 6 days, 5 to 6 days, when it's cold weather, I'm calling Kathy and saying, order another load. We're at such and such percentage. I don't like to dip it down more than 30% in case something goes wrong. We have a storm, something of that line. So right around 25 to 30% is what I'm calling Kathy to get a load in there. The other thing about purchasing the tank that I would just mention is there is a ton of maintenance that goes on with maintaining that plant out there. And Eastern is here quite often. I see him driving in here, checking on it regularly. I have the gentleman that's in charge of the plant. I have his cell phone number. I call him right at the house if I have any sort of problems. And I've never once called him for anything and him not answer or pick up the phone. If I say I smell something propane, which at one point I did when they were doing some excavation out here, he had somebody here within minutes, basically. Their response time is very accurate. And I'm not saying we can't look at those other options. I'm just saying keep in mind of the maintenance and the service things that go in to a plant that size. It's not like a little pig propane tank out in our backyards.
Right, right. Thank you, Will. Anybody, any further questions or anything that Kathy should look into regarding propane? Does that answer your questions, Mr. Babson?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kathy. Hey, Jason.
Thank you, Kathy.
No problem.
Good morning.
This morning we have 52 in-house. We have no weekenders, 8 transfers, 4 out on electronic monitoring, 18 on pretrial release, total population of 82. Took in 14 inmates last week, 5 were repeaters, and released 21. Repeater charges, 1 came in for criminal mischief, booked 3 times in 2 years, 1 for protective custody, booked 8 times in 4 years, 1 for a capias, booked 14 times in 7 years, 1 for protective custody, booked 3 times this year, 1 for DWI, operating after suspension, resisting arrest, and disobeying a police officer, booked 3 times in 2 years. Based on the RFP process for the sally port doors and the caulking, I only had 1 response for the doors. And I'd like to award the doors to DSI, who is the original person. They came in $3,000 less than the only response that we had. And that was $10,000 to do the Sally Port doors this year. I'd like to take that out of my maintenance line. With respect to the caulking, I'd like to do day rooms 1 through 3 to the sum of about $12,000 worth of work. With the doors and the caulking, $22,436. Right now I have $36,000 in my maintenance line. I'd like to see
Was
if we
there
can-
any other maintenance planned other than those?
There's some work that needs to be done with boilers, but that's going to be taken care of. We'll still have money left
Taken
over.
care of how? How, what do you mean it's gonna be taken care of?
Strogens is going to be coming in to finish cleaning that one boiler. We just did, I say, $1,800 worth of work to a boiler because it malfunctioned. That's the only thing that I foresee right now.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
You wanna, go ahead, would you finish your report?
I have 3 contracts here for Northern Human Services to provide mental health services, psychiatric services, and substance abuse services. I'd like to propose those contracts for review and approval. The psychiatrist would be in the facility 6 hours a month, and that person would do medication management, psychiatric assessments, and things of that nature. The mental health counseling would be doing mental health assessments and referral to the psychiatric provider if need be. They'd be in 8 hours a week. And then substance abuse, we'd be looking to do 8 hours a month on that. And to give a cost breakout, for psychiatric services, we're looking at an annual cost of about $11,700. For mental health services, $33,280, and for substance abuse, $9,600. With these proposed contracts, it's saving us about $71,000 over how we were doing business before.
Saving 71,000?
Yeah. Last year, just for LADAC, we were doing about $60,000 just for substance abuse. And then with the full-time ARNP, that was $66,000. If you take the 2 combined, between the psychiatric and the mental health, you're looking at $44,000.
45, yeah.
So significant savings there too. And I'd look to bring these folks in starting November 2nd.
On the time frame that they're available, that they will be coming in, how does that work with when you get a prisoner coming in? Sometimes you say, occasionally there's a problem and you need somebody to evaluate that prisoner immediately, otherwise you end up having to send them down to the hospital for whatever needs to be done. Will that be, is that included in this?
That would be considered an emergent need. What we're gonna do for the 8 hours, we're gonna break it out so they're in the facility twice a week, for 4-hour blocks. And anything outside of those timeframes, it would be considered an emergent matter, and they would come in at $80 an hour, and it would be prorated to the closest 15-minute interval. So anything above and beyond the additional, the 8 hours in contractual agreement would be billed at $80 an hour.
Is the subcommittee of delegation aware of this?
No, they're not.
Okay.
The only other couple of things I have is I had to bring one of my inmates back that I had on administrative transfer out to another county because he was being disruptive up at that county. We have a meeting on October 28th with Omnicare. The doctors are going to meet with Omnicare to set up a formulary and hopefully negotiate prices. The contract with them is up next July. So if they're not willing to move, then we may need to look at another company to get better prices for medication.
And what time, what date was that again, October what?
October 28th, and the meeting starts at 8 o'clock in the morning.